I am God, I am gay, I am happy, I am healthy. And in this human form, I'm known as Jerónimo Burneo, Jerónimo with a G. So, 3 years ago, I went to a innovation and entrepreneurship bootcamp with the mission of helping myself and others be more creative. While I was attending this bootcamp, I stumbled upon a book with a very interesting premise and promise. Basically, what the book could do for the reader was allow you to connect to divine powers of creativity, to the most powerful, the most divine energies of creativity. When I stumbled upon this book, I thought I was going to be levitating and doing rituals and summoning spirits or something like that. But when I read it and when I actually saw what the book was about, it was much more inspiring than that, much more practical, and something that should be taught not only for creative people, but for basically everyone out there. And sadly, we're not taught about it. And to make things even more intense, the people who know this, the people who have this knowledge, had been persecuted systemically for years and years and years, and they had to hide this knowledge. And recently, it was like a 21st century thing that this knowledge was started being shared to the masses and to humanity. And the people I'm talking about and the knowledge I'm talking about is the Kabbalah, the Kabbalists. When I was doing this innovation bootcamp and I started reading this book, both things started pointing to this big elephant in the room. And this big elephant in the room that's blocking and stopping us from being creative is something that basically is in each and every one of us, and it's something we need to fight every day to overcome. And that thing is our ego, or what the Kabbalists call the adversary. So this big insight was huge for me in my own creative life and how I approach my life and how I help others be more creative, because that's something I really like to do, being like an agent of creativity and being here to help others and myself be more creative. And to do that, I started realizing that the first thing I needed to do and everyone needed to do was overcome the ego, because the ego becomes the same voice that tells you you're the best, you're the only one, get there, stumble upon everyone, step on everyone's feet and back and stab people in the back and get there. That same voice is the same voice that then tells you you're not good enough, don't start, don't waste your time. Like, it's the same exact voice, and that is the voice that is blocking true creative expression. So since those 3 years ago, this became like one of my main topics of how to overcome the ego and how to do this. And I've been reading a lot and I've been studying a lot. And in fact, I wrote my own book that is called RESTLESS, A Practical Guide for Purposeful Creativity, which is basically my way of sharing my creative process with the whole world. And the first and biggest step that I suggest anyone who wants to embark on a creative journey to take is to, you can see it here, defeat the killer. Who's the killer? Who's this killer you have to defeat? It's your ego. It's that part of yourself. And the way I propose to do it and the exercise I designed in this book was heavily inspired by that book I read 3 years ago. In fact, at the end, in references and further reading, it's the first book I mentioned. So this video is meant to share that reference, that bibliography, that first reference that basically has been like a huge inspiration for me, and so helpful in my life. And I did include it in my book, but I wanted to do this video, even though I am not the most pro social media content, the content economy revolution. I'm very critical of it, but at the same time, the people who had this knowledge didn't have the same luxury that I have today of sitting on front of a camera and just recording themselves, sharing this to the world, even though that's what they wanted to do. So I'm going to overcome my own ego and my own killer and my own adversary and do this video anyway. Even if it gets 2 views, those 2 people out there are gonna take a lot from it. So let's dive in. This is Praying for Creativity, a restless bibliography. And the book I'm going to talk about today, this big book that changed my life, is The Prayer of the Kabbalist, the 42-letter name of God by the one and only Yehuda Berg. So, to start, let's answer this big question. What is Kabbalah? It literally means to receive. It's not a religion as a definition of a system of controlled rituals and traditions and beliefs and ways of being. More than that, it's a spiritual technology. It's knowledge that helps you become greater and become better, not by following rigorous things, but as a technology. And the Kabbalah is a deeper and higher understanding of ancient texts, especially the Zohar, that is heavily inspired, and it heavily touches upon the relationships of the Torah. And that's why for a long time Kabbalah has been labeled as Jewish mysticism, when in fact, yes, it touches upon those very important Jewish texts, but it's its own thing, and within the Jewish religion, it's always been kind of like its own separate thing. It's a mystical tradition, which it differentiates from other religious traditions, because a mystical tradition is channeling the divine principles through you, actually becoming God, not studying and praying to a separate thing, but embodying these divine and mystical principles. What is my relationship to Kabbalah? For a long time, I was studying Hermetism and the Hermetic philosophy and the Kybalion and all of this. And it felt like a natural next step to study. Also, I had found out that I have Sephardi ancestry from Sephardi Jews that were expelled from the Iberic Peninsula centuries ago. And it is the Kabbalah, the Zohar, this spiritual technology, this mystical tradition was heavily pioneered and innovated by those Sephardi Jews in the Iberic Peninsula that eventually were expelled. I started studying this by myself around 3 years ago because I was looking for a welcoming spiritual system, not something that would be like, no, because you're gay, you cannot even start reading this, you know? Like, I was looking for something that didn't follow those strict mind traps, you know? And one of my main reasons that I have this relationship with the Kabbalah and all of these ancient knowledge sources is because I'm restlessly curious. I'm always wanting to learn, and that's part of what has inspired this whole journey. So, this is like a basic Kabbalah class. So, the center of Kabbalah is basically this being, this unknowable essence, which is called the Ein Sof. It's the unknowable essence of God. It's something that, from starters, you cannot pinpoint and you cannot attribute human characteristics to it, because in essence, it's everything. It's all of it. Like it's this force that permeates and penetrates absolutely everything. It's like in the Kybalion, the all. This Ein Sof has that same characteristic of this unknowable essence, which is in itself God. What is the thing we do know about this being that explains why we're here and what's our relationship with it? Is that this Ein Sof at some point wanted to discover itself within itself. It was complete, it was powerful, it was perfect. But at some point, it wanted to see its perfection, like it wanted to test its power. It wanted to basically like see what this completeness and what this perfect light was. So at some point, it, from being this state of pure, complete light, it rejected its own light, it contracted itself, and it created our universe, our material world, in this absence of light. And that is through that process where this perfect light rejected itself and became dark, this world we inhabit, the matrix, whatever you want to call it, this illusory world we live in, this material world, it got created through that process of rejection of light. And this world, imagine that, and that's the difference between Kabbalah and, for example, Gnosticism about the placement of this material world. In Kabbalah, the way they describe it is that this world is, in essence, inside of this being. It's not like the pleroma and the kenoma in Gnostic philosophy. Like in Kabbalah, this world we inhabit, it's like in itself, it's within this being, but in a place where it's closer to darkness than to light. So that's why our task is to do the exact same thing that this Ein Sof, this unknowable essence of God did, which is for it to discover itself within ourselves. So we need to make space for this being, for this unknowable source, to flow through us and to realize that we are it and it is us. And that's how it discovers itself within ourselves in this illusory world. So that's the main task that you are basically sent to do in this spiritual technology. Then, how do you do this? It's a big task. How do you do this is, to do this, basically what you have to do is to embody the divine qualities of this unknowable Ein Sof force. You need to understand that in Kabbalah, the creation of this universe is not something that has stopped. It is an ongoing process, getting back to this perfect state. It's something that is always flowing, always happening, and you must allow yourself with these divine qualities of the Ein Sof for creation to happen. And you make this room within yourself for this to happen by removing the thing that's stopping it, which is your adversary or your ego. By using this spiritual technology coded in ancient texts through Aramaic letters and words, these languages were much more richer in symbols and much more richer in codes than the languages we use now. Like the relationship between the letters, the placement of the letters, more than just the word itself, everything had its meaning and everything has its own powers. So through decoding these short but very spiritual rich texts is how we learn how to basically defeat our ego. And one example is this text, which is called the 42-letter name of God, or the Ana Bekoach. And this book is basically dedicated entirely to deciphering the true meaning of this text. What is the 42-letter name of God? It is the prayer of the Kabbalist. That's the book by Yehuda Berg. That's the book that currently, and in our nearest contemporary view, is decoding this ancient text. It's the study and practice of the meaning behind what could be considered the Genesis, or the 7 days of creation. And more than that, is connecting you to those same creative powers wielded by the being creating this world in those 7 days of creation, because those powers are here to be used. It connects you to the highest creative forces of the universe. What I'm going to do in this video, I'm going to share my own practical application of the exercises I created expanding the ones on this book, because when I read the book, it had one big, very incredibly useful exercise, which I'm super grateful for it, the 3-list exercise, and it's been a big inspiration for my book. But in my case, because I'm kind of like always doing stuff and always creating, I wanted to develop more practical exercises that will help me. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing what the book says in general, but also the exercises I created, and also I'm going to share what I wrote down on the exercises. So what is here right now on the screen is this text, the 42-letter name of God. It's been divided in these 7 lines. Each line has its own meaning, and each line connects you to one of these very strong creative forces. And it's a prayer that's meant to be put in practice through a week. And every day of the week, you put your consciousness and your awareness to one of these principles. These ancient texts in Aramaic that eventually transformed and became into Hebrew and other languages were meant to be read from right to left. And it's believed that the richness of these languages and the written aspect of this language itself has already divine qualities. So even if you don't know how to read Aramaic, it's your advice to scan your eyes through the text if that's something you want to do and you feel comfortable doing, because of these qualities, divine visual qualities it has. So what we're going to do today, we're going to go day by day, line by line, talking about what each day and each line has to offer on how to overcome our ego and connect ourselves to the highest creative forces on the universe. So let's go to day 1. The first day, the line says, Ana Bekoach kudulat yamincha tatir tserura. What this line teaches us is that there's always 2 ways of asking to receive something. The first one is to ask in favor of the ego, and the second one is to ask in favor of your soul. The choice will always be yours, and you will be presented with this opportunity every day. When you ask something in favor of your ego, you're actually losing the opportunity to receive what your soul actually needs. So it's something you have to think about. Because of this, during this life, you will be able to accumulate goods in a material and also spiritual way. This applies here too. The goods that lose their value with time are the ones who tend to gratify the ego. Money, clothes, things, whatever thing that you thought you really wanted and you needed, but with time it completely loses its value. That was just gratifying the ego. But you also have goods that bring higher value, not just to yourself, but to the whole universe. Those are the goods that gratify the soul. Goods that lose their value with time are often related to what material wealth can buy. So the exercise on this day is to start by making these 2 lists. List number 1, you're gonna write down all of the things you want that money can buy. In my example, I wrote time outside of the system. Money can buy you time outside of having to work a 9 to 5, doing this, having those responsibilities. Money can buy you that. Money can also buy you, and in this case it could buy me, quick escapes, and also paid rich, paying for ads on these internet platforms and stuff like that. Then you're advised to write a second list. And in that list, you're going to write all the things you want that money cannot buy. For example, having a creative legacy, money really cannot buy you that. Respect, actual long-lasting, this person has left the earth and there's still respect, money cannot buy that either. Artistic integrity, that's something money cannot buy. And in my example, those are the things I wrote down in the second list. So, list 1 are the things that would gratify my ego, and list 2 are things my soul is asking for. Every day you have to choose wisely, because you cannot let yourself be fooled by choosing only from list 1, because you are always at risk of losing something from list 2. This is my example, and I'm going to show you what I mean. If money is always buying me quick escapes and I'm able to just go on the next trip and the next adventure and stuff like that, and I'm always escaping, then I'm losing the chance to build something that's long lasting, because I'm never in one place enough to grow, to develop, to get to know, to develop community and connections and stuff like that, and to have leave my legacy and my whatever there, like, because I'm always going. So that's the thing I'm risking for choosing things from the list of things material wealth can buy. So when you dedicate your life to gaining the list your soul needs, list 2, those ones from list 1 will come naturally to you too. That is like a big moment of like, what do you mean by that? Think about it. If you actually focus on getting the things your soul wants, then the things, these material things that are meant to be and are meant to come to you will come to you. But you're not focusing on the tip of the iceberg. You're focusing on what's the big part, what's meaningful, what's behind. So at this point, it's like, okay, so when I meditate, when I pray, the thing I need to do is just, I'm going to ask for things on my list 2, on the things from the list that my soul needs. The answer is no, you don't have to do that, because those things are already yours. They're already yours. So this kind of leaves you hanging in the air and being like, so what do I pray for? What do I ask for? What do I meditate on? You want to know what you pray for. You pray to this source, to this being, to this unknowable divine source, to help you remove all of the things that might be blocking you from receiving what your soul is asking for. Because your soul is asking you things it knows it needs and it knows it's going to get. But your ego, your adversary, your killer is constantly making you do things that block these things to actually getting to you. So if you pray for something, you pray for the removal of those blocks. And to be sure of what's the thing that needs to be removed, you create a third list. You write down a list of all of the negative traits. You must meditate and pray and focus on removing those. Kabbalah explains that this works because if you make this improvement in your inner world, the outer world will reflect it back. Those things your soul needs will get there. But this requires reflection, action, and daily work. So to start, you will need to find out what to write on your third list. What is causing that block? And because the ego, the adversary, the killer, has tricks and illusions, those answers are not the first things that come to your mind. What you actually have to do is go to the people around you. The people around you have those answers. Ask the people who know you the most, who spend the most time with you. Go to them and ask them, what are negative traits, things I do or I could improve? Just simply go ask them. In my case, because I'm also very into astrology, I wanted a holistic answer. So I asked 4 people who know me very, very well, and I chose them based on their zodiac sign element. So I wanted an answer from one person with a water sign, one person with an earth sign, one person with an air sign, and one person with a fire sign, because I wanted the perspective from all of the elements, you know? And what I'm actually gonna share right now is what people told me I could improve on. So the person with the water sign told me I could take better care of my space, my personal hygiene, and I could reply more to messages. The person with an earth sign told me I can raise the volume too much, causing me not to pay attention to certain people and conversations, and I can be too radical. The air sign told me I can be closed to certain people and experiences and might be perceived a bit as a hater sometimes, because I'm like very critical sometimes. And the person with the fire sign told me that they've seen that when I'm in a relationship, in a romantic relationship, I can withdraw from the rest of the world, and that could cause me to isolate myself from the people around me. Now that I had this external input, I could do my internal reflection too, and that's what I invite you to do too. Think about, this is genius. This is genius, and this is on the original book, and my praises to Yehuda Berg for this. Think about, this is something you can do completely by yourself. Think about what are things you highly dislike in a family member, in a close friend, or even someone you would consider an enemy. Remember, the outer reflects the inner. So these are things you actually don't like about yourself. In my case, in my example, what I didn't like about one of my family members is that they're constantly measuring their personal success by comparing and devaluating other success. So it's like somebody did something great and the answer is like, they only did it because they're a Nepo baby. And I was like being bothered by this attitude one of my family members had, just to realize it's something I do too. Then I thought about a close friend. I realized that I was getting annoyed at a close friend because they were highly idealizing how the world should be without taking the proper action to make it happen. So I realized that's something that bothers me about myself too. And then this enemy. How did I choose an enemy? In my case, I did this right after I moved from this living situation that I had. Always grateful and blessed to have a roof over my head. But before doing this exercise, I was living in a shared flat, a shared apartment with 11 people. And there was this person who was always in the kitchen at the same time I was in the kitchen. And I sort of started turning them mentally into an enemy. So what bothered me about this person the most is that they were always in the kitchen wearing headphones, listening to love songs and stuff like that, taking up the other people's spaces by doing this whole dramatic cooking thing with their Stockholm syndrome and Persephone's romance attitude, because it was pretty evident for the rest of us that this person was always getting into fights with their partner, very public shared apartment fights, and then when those fights were over, this person was doing this, and it bothered me and it annoyed me, and I was like, how can you be so blind? And then I was like doing this exercise. It bothers me so much because I've done that too. So, the matrix, our physical world, by design, will always reflect this to you. And our adversary, our ego, our killer, will use the illusion of this world to hide these truths from us. So, our task is to find what is hidden from us by our ego. It's difficult at first, but it's incredibly gratifying once you know the truth. So, what the exercise invites you to do now is to write a list of all of the things that cause these blocks in your life. Your negative traits, your killer, your adversary, your ego. And that's what you write in your third list, and that's what you pray and meditate to be removed. So, my third list, when I did this exercise, looked something like this. These were the negative traits I was praying and I was actively meditating to be removed. Misusing my projects, being prone to judgment ruled by stubbornness, falling into these Persephonial romances. This Persephone is in hell complaining for these seasons in the year and being like, oh, she's the queen of the underworld and the whole world gets sad because she's there. But at the same time, she ate the pomegranate seeds, like she was the one who put herself in that situation. And then she's like the queen of tragedy. So like that's something I wanted to remove from my life too. Detaching and disconnecting from loved ones first, and taking other people's space, imposing my truth as the only one. Those are the things I had to work on daily to be removed. So that's why this line and this day focuses on the removal of time and space and motion. It removes the negative influence from physical matter from our lives. And it makes us connect with unconditional love. Because if we're able to see our negative traits and to know that even with these negative traits, we're part and we can be connected to the Ein Sof and this highly divine, perfect, complete being, and it loves us, even if we have these negative traits. It's not to become like self-mutilating and being like, I want this removed from me, but it's accepting you have these negative traits and you have to work on them. And even if it's a daily battle, the force that helps you in this daily battle will be unconditional love. So this is day 1, and this is just the first line. Day 2 is the following line. Kabel, Rinat, Amcha, Tavenu, Nora. What does this line mean? So, Kabbalah explains that there are 2 worlds we can inhabit daily. The world of doubt and the world of answers. We inhabit these worlds. They're like dimensions of our same existence. It's like looking at the world with 2 different lenses, the lens of doubt and the lens of answers. That's our same experience. And we wear these lenses based on 2 different states of existence, the reactive state and the proactive state. The state we choose to exist leads us to inhabit its corresponding world. So if we choose to be proactive, we're living in the world of answers. If we choose to be reactive, we live in the world of doubt. But what exactly is the reactive state? It is when you fall into all of these negative traits. When you react to the external world with your limited consciousness due to your reactive impulses. When you trap yourself into believing you're caught up into the effects of a chaotic external world without realizing you might have been the cause of that. What are some reactive state examples? Feeling envy for others' success, comparing yourself to others on social media, letting a bad moment ruin your entire day, allowing yourself to lose your temper whenever you want to lose it, blaming others for your current circumstances. This is happening because but never taking accountability, wanting to be right at all costs. That is part of being reactive too. Then, on the other side of this same pole, what is the proactive state? It's a state you enter by making a conscious effort to resist becoming reactive. That's the first step. When you're not reactive and you choose not to react, that's the first step to become proactive. Knowing that you are the creator of your own life and that each choice you make has an impact, has an effect. Your choices matter. Through the proactive state, you own and become your own cause, acting on what your soul needs. You take that proactive stance of understanding cause and effect. Then I'm going to be conscious of the things I cause. What are examples of the proactive state? Practicing mit Freud, which is this concept that when you see a friend that has success and you feel even like an ounce of envy, you force yourself to be happy for them, no matter what it takes. You just rewire yourself and you force yourself to be happy. Other examples of proactive states: focusing on your own life, practicing letting go and saying, I'm sorry. Stopping and breathing, great way of being proactive. Excellent way of being proactive. Taking accountability and moving on. Connecting yourself to higher solutions, even if you appear to be wrong in the eyes of the ego and the adversary and the killer and all of the things that make you feel wrong. Our adversary, or what we can consider this mix, if you know about psychoanalysis, the way the adversary is like described is kind of like a mix between the ID and the ego. Animalistic impulses with a very weak mediator, like that's kind of the way the adversary is presented. And that's what I call the killer, because I think it had like a better way of summing up this. The killer will always try to make you think small and fall into reactiveness. It will use fear and doubt as mental traps. Its best and most effective weapon if you're not proactive. But once you realize that uncertainty, fear, and doubt are there to make you react, you can resist, rise above, and become proactive. And you leave the killer, you leave the adversary, the ego. Basically, you render them powerless, because through the proactive state, you've risen above and you're in a state your own ego cannot comprehend anymore. So, once again, how do I practice this? How did I find a relationship between this and a practical way to use it in my life with my example? So what I did, this was part of my own exploration, was I got points from my third list. For example, misuse of projects and detaching and disconnecting from loved one first. I consciously observed myself and consciously saw my reactive tendency, and I rejected it, and then I took a proactive decision. So for the misuse of projects, I saw myself that I was like looking at other people's things and projects and work on social media, and I was already like, but I'm not like them because I am like this, and I need to communicate that this is what makes me unique and this is what makes me different. And like when I saw myself doing that, I was like, I'm reacting. I need to resist this. I cannot fall into the trap of letting my ego bring me into social media and be like, I am different because this and that, like that was stupid. So my conscious and proactive decision was following through this whole prayer and this whole book even before I even started thinking about posting stuff on social media and marketing and stuff like that. Then on this other point, detaching and disconnecting from my loved ones first, the way I saw myself being reactive is like I never have Instagram downloaded on my phone. My phone is in black and white. I only go on Instagram on my computer, and sometimes like altogether I just delete my account and stuff like that. But my mom back then was about to launch a personal project she had been working on for a while, and if I would have not been there, even if it was in a digital kind of space, I would have not been present for my mom's big launch. So I was like, okay, I can resist the urge to delete Instagram. I can simply not be in it and just go and comment on my mom's posts, and that I think I am able to do that. I think I can rise above the Instagram dopaminic traps. So my conscious and proactive decision was, okay, I'll just self-regulate and be present for the launch. When I know for a fact that my mom's going to start posting her stuff, I'm just gonna go to her things, like, comment, and go out. I'm not gonna let myself be trapped there. So that's the way this second day, and that's the reflection I came up with the second day. So the meaning behind this line is the following: restricting the reactive system, closing the gates from Satan, which in this case is the killer, the ego, the adversary, and forgetting all the limited thoughts, all the things that you thought limited you and made you react. It's like letting them go. So this line, kind of like, you've probably heard the "not today, Satan" kind of thing. This line is the Aramaic version of that, like, I'm not going to fall into reactiveness. That's what you meditate on the second day. Now we can move on to the third day. So the third day is Na Gibor Dorshe Yudecha Kevavat Sharem. So what does this mean? What is this day about? So to understand why Kabbalah speaks the way it speaks and why it falls under this like branch of Western esoteric practices, they say it's very generalized, but it kind of makes you understand all of the practices that fall into the Western esoteric practices versus the Eastern one. I know it's polarizing and I know it's generalist, but the way they explain it is that the Western practices are for the Western mind and the Eastern ones are for the Eastern mind. Wanted or not, in the last 300 years, civilizations from the West have been much more reliant on reasoning, analysis, thought patterns, money, data. Like our societies, our civilizations have that very highly, versus Eastern civilizations do continue and maintain things like emotions, not so mental, more emotional. So the Western esoteric practices use a lot of analogies for the Western mind, for the type of mind that has been imposed and forged into our brains since we were kids. So the analogies on this third day are literally meant to make you understand by using your Western analytical, reasoning, logical mind. So day 3 explains that our daily transactions can be made from, imagine you have a bank and you have 2 accounts, or to what the book actually says, you have 2 different banks and you have an account in each bank. You have the reactive bank and you have the proactive bank. Both banks have an interest on your account or a cost for every transaction. When you use your reactive bank account, the interest is losing touch with one of the things that your soul actually is asking for, your list 2. We know this already. You react, you choose the ego, you probably lose something or risk losing something your soul actually needs. Then you have your proactive bank account. Basically, the interest of using the proactive bank account is losing or letting go one of your negative traits. Both accounts work the same. The interest is different. What are you willing to sacrifice? Something your soul needs, or one of your negative traits that is blocking you from receiving all of the things that are meant for you. So, the first 3 letters from this line act as the password for your proactive bank account. It's an invitation to identify and defeat one of your negative traits you've identified. When you give the world something good like kindness, tolerance, or forgiveness, instead of giving one of your negative traits, you're already accessing your proactive bank account. What are examples of my proactive bank account? So, one of my points from my list 3 is being prone to judgment ruled by stubbornness. So, I may walk around life and see someone and judge them and be like, this person is this and that, and just because I saw the way they dress, or I saw the way they talked, or I can fall in, I admit it, I can be judgmental like that. So when I was doing this, I was like, okay, if I catch myself doing that, I'm going to access my proactive bank account by smiling and saying hello to this person, you know? Like, if I ever feel myself being judgmental, I'm gonna, even if they don't do it back, but I'm doing it for the proactive bank account. I'm being kind, I'm saying hello. Another point from my 3rd list was taking up other space, imposing my truth as the only one. So, what am I going to do for this to access my proactive bank account if I see this as my negative trait? Whenever I see somebody that has an opposite viewpoint from mine, I'm going to actively listen to them and expand my opposite perspective. It's not that I'm going to change my mind necessarily or go to the other side, but I'm going to listen to what they have to say and understand this is the way they think, this is the way I think, but it's also good for me to know that they think in a certain way, even if it's the opposite way than what I think, you know, like it's just gonna make my perspective richer and less ignorant, you know. The rest of this line answers one of the biggest questions we have. Why does our universe exist? According to Kabbalah, the main reason this universe exists and is still here, it's because it balances the 3 main forces that rule the universe, according to Kabbalah. The first one is the light, the ability to share, this positive, also yang masculine principle. The light. You're sharing your light. The second one is the vessel. It's the ability to receive. It's the complete opposite of the light. It's the negative principle, the feminine, the yin, the other side, the vessel. Our souls receive the light from the Creator. It's that ability. That's the other force. And then the third big force we have in this world is resistance and free will. It's choosing between sharing and receiving. That is a huge force we have, and that it's often like not really taken into consideration when they talk about the 2 main forces of the universe, the positive and negative, the yin, the yang, the masculine, the feminine. Like, you know, when there's like, because I know that when I'm saying this has a lot of connotations, and especially for queer people, but it's just this way of describing 2 energies that have nothing to do necessarily with genitals, and it has to do with the principles, the essence of these energies. But in fact, there's this third one that is sometimes really not talked about enough, which is the free will, the resistance, choosing between sharing or receiving, the ability to transmute, to transform, to balance these forces. These are the 3 main forces of the universe according to the Kabbalah. So, before even creation happened, the Kabbalah says that everything was in this state of perfect light, just sharing. Everything was perfect, like light, just sharing. And our souls were the vessels and receivers of this perfect light, which were in complete perfection. Our souls, seeing the Ein Sof, seeing this unknowable divine, complete, beautiful being, wanted to be like the Ein Sof. They didn't want to just receive, they wanted to share too. So that's why the Ein Sof contracted itself and rejected the light, to give our souls that capability to share too. So our souls come to this world to do that, to learn how to share, to learn not just how to be the vessel, but to be the light too, and be just like the Ein Sof, for it to discover itself within ourselves too. You know, like as the prayer progresses, these abstract concepts slowly have more sense to them. That's why you have to do this prayer like and go each line on every day and actually practice, because it has a lot of epiphanies. So that's how the Ein Sof discovers itself within itself, by you becoming God, by you learning how to share, but by you learning how to be the light too, and not just the vessel. Kabbalah explains that our souls always want to receive. That's part of their nature. But our true growth comes the moment we turn this constant desire to constantly receive into the desire to receive to share with others. That's how the vessel becomes the light too. Because you're not just receiving for you, you're receiving to share with others, you know? That's this thing that light can be a particle and a wave too, you know? That's what Kabbalah says we come here to learn, to transmute our desire to receive and transform it into desire to receive to share with others. This line jumpstarts this process by inviting you to share, especially in moments where it feels hard or where it feels uncomfortable. When you're able to share even when it's hard, that's a sign that you're defeating your adversary. And that's how you know you're accessing your proactive bank account, because it requires effort. It becomes a bit hard to do, but incredibly gratifying. So you do this by jump-starting the sharing, by jump-starting becoming the light. So in my example, and in the exercise I came up with, was this sharing jumpstart situation, was getting a point from my third list and seeing in which situation I could share even if it felt uncomfortable and even if it hurt. So a point from my third list was misusing my projects. So my sharing jumpstart becoming the light was sharing something even if it's my day of sharing stuff. Stupid example, but example nonetheless. Posting something on social media, working hard on something and being like, on that day I'm going to post it, and that's the day I'm going to post it. You go and you post it and you share, and then you see somebody you really admire and your friend also shared something that day and it's super cool, but you shared and you don't want to overshare. And when that's the moment where I was like, I don't care, even if it was my day to share and I see my friend who is doing something brave, doing something like that, I'm going to repost it too, you know? I'm not on social media a lot, but whenever I am, that's one of the ways I jumpstart the becoming the light. Another point from my third list was this Persephonial romances. So while I was doing this exercise, I was actually talking to somebody. I was getting to know someone, and I saw myself feeling insecure, because I don't actually remember exactly what I was feeling insecure about, but I just remember that day I was feeling insecure, the day I did this exercise, and I was kind of like ghosting them. And I was like, you know what? Instead of doing this stupid thing, I am going to tell them, I'm going to share my insecurity, even if the world tells you like, no, never share your insecurities. You have to present yourself as a perfect to your suitors and to the people you're going out to. You don't need to show weakness. Present yourself perfectly. Even if that's what the dating advice is, I was like, you know what? I like this person. I do want to get to know them more. They need to know me more too. So I'm just going to share my insecurity, even if it's uncomfortable. So that's how I did it that day. I told them, I don't remember exactly, but I was like, hey, sorry for not responding. I was feeling insecure. Have a good night. Yeah, that was my way of jump starting and doing this sharing, becoming the light thing on that day. So that is why the meaning behind this third line on the third day is opening the channel of sustenance, retrieving the light from the klipot, and removing hatred for no reason. For the sake of this video, and not to make it longer than it needs to be, I'm not going to fully explain what a klipot is, but in Kabbalah they explain it like as a shell, as a negative experience, as the opposite of light, that what contains light, the thing that makes light being contained. So just to explain that this line helps you take the light out of whatever thing that is blocking the light. And that's the meaning of the line from the third day. Now, let's go to day 4. Day 4 says, Barem tarem racheme sadecha tamid gamlem. So, I like the way I know this, how to pronounce it. It's more important to scan it than pronounce it properly. Even though these languages do have a divine quality to the way to its pronunciation too. I don't want to discard that at all because it's also powerful. But I was like, I've been listening for years now to this song of somebody reading this, and that's how I kind of know how to pronounce it. But I'm butchering it, and I admit it. So let's go back to day 4. It's no secret that people who achieve great things in life always cite perseverance as one of the strongest forces that made them achieve all of these things. A common mistake people make is abandoning their great cause because they feel they're not making progress. And the adversary, the killer, the ego, will use this illusion to trick you into quitting. Even watching this whole video, or even doing this prayer, like it's there telling you like it's too hard, don't do it, you don't have time. It's going to be there. Kabbalah teaches that this has a reason. And the reason is that our reality is composed by 10 dimensions. And each dimension is composed by 10 sub-dimensions. Imagine that it's like playing a video game with 10 levels, and each level has 10 missions. So there's a lot of things you got to do. And like playing a video game, every time you ascend into a higher level, you experience light, you experience the reward of, wow, I'm making progress. You experience the blessing, the happiness that comes with elevating yourself spiritually. But that does not mean you stop facing challenges and obstacles. The first mission of the next level will always be harder, So Kabbalah is here to tell you, don't quit growing, don't quit improving. So sometimes when you are doing progress, you feel like you got to the next level, but you fell down, when actually you fell upwards, not down. You're ascending. The importance of this fourth line is the power of perseverance, knowing that you are doing something worthy of all of your effort. This line invites you to tap into your own power and not let the adversary bring you down with fear or doubt. This is one of the biggest things in Kabbalah. It's the tree of life, the divine emanations, the Sephirot. Each, you can see that it's one is above the other, and it's like it has like different levels and different paths and stuff like that. That's the way. This is the visual way that the becoming God looks like, this process looks like. And you need to imagine that each of these Sephirot, each of these spheres have one of this tree of life to them too. So it becomes this big big universe. And that's life, and that's experience, and that's what living feels like. So thank God we have spiritual technologies like this that help you ascend and help you actually improve. When you enter a new level, you face the obstacles and challenges corresponding to this higher level, like playing a video game. This can be daunting for many people, and they might be tempted to quit. But this is when we need to persevere the most. The great thing of consciously climbing this tree of life and knowing what you're doing is that you have the knowledge from the previous levels to help you. It's not something that just is erased, you know? Like, you're on a harder level, yes, but because you earned it by learning the other levels. The 3 last letters of this line have the same numerical value as the word window, because as I told you, this language, letters are assigned numbers, and like it's a whole thing. That's why it needs to be heavily studied. But what does it mean, window? This symbolizes the power to let the guiding light from the higher levels through, because you're not alone. If life gets hard, you need to make the light come through, because light will always guide you. So how do you let this light guide you when things get hard? As windows work to let light in, you need to keep them clean. You do this by freeing yourself from the adversary and reactiveness. That's how you create this clairvoyance into your path. This is how you allow the Ein Sof, the higher divine powers, guide you, by freeing yourself from the things that dirty your view, which are your reactive state and your killer, your adversary, your ego. So in day 4, my example was the following. My point from list 3 was taking up other space, imposing my truth as my own. So in this day, the exercise I created for myself was like, okay, how do I make sure that the window is clean whenever I get to this next level? I'm going to, since now, have a mantra for myself for whenever I get to that level. So when I ascend and I get to a higher level, for example, with this taking other space, imposing my truth as my own, and things get hard when I get to this new level, my mantra for that next level will be, my truth is stronger when it encompasses other truths. So with this same logic, I did it for all of the points in list 3, even if I'm just sharing 3 now, I did it for the 5 total ones. Another point was being prone to judgment ruled by stubbornness. My mantra for the next level in my improvement was reminding myself that when I pass my judgment, is this all I'm willing to learn? Whenever I'm like, this is this, or that is that, whenever I do that, I'm actively rejecting learning more about whatever I'm judging. So do I want to do that? Do I want to force myself and put myself in a situation where I'm not able to learn anymore because I've passed my judgment? So that's something I need to reflect whenever I'm on the next levels. And this third point, the misuse of my projects, my mantra for this next level will be to always expose the purpose, and if light is needed, fight for it to get through. In whichever creative thing I decide to do, you know, like even if it's a solo collaborative project, whatever, like if it was my idea, others like whatever situation, if I am part of a project, I need to know what's the purpose of doing it, and the purpose should always be clear for me, for others, and for whoever is doing the project with me. Always the purpose should be clear. This is why I'm doing it. Like, and if something doesn't allow the purpose to be clear, that's when I fight for it to be clear, you know? Like, if at some point I need to take action and maybe be a bit more intense and have to take these actions that require a bit more force, they're justifiable when the purpose is clear. So that was my mantra for this next level. And that's why the meaning behind the line of day 4 is the power to persevere. Now let's go to the 5th day. So, day number 5. So, what does this mean? I'm going to quote another great Kabbalist here, the one and only Madonna, from her song Sky Fits Heaven. In this song, she sings, "Fate fits karma, so use it." What does Madonna mean by this? The following. Kabbalah teaches you how to master the law of cause and effect. In physics, in our daily lives, every action has a reaction. Every cause has an effect. By consciously mastering this law, Kabbalists are able to see into the future. It's like planting a seed that turns into a tree full of fruits that hold more seeds. The law is neutral in nature. The seeds we plant with our daily actions can be both positive or negative. Kabbalah teaches that nothing is random. If we might be struggling with something now, it's probably because a seed was planted by us in the past. Just one little thing. This positive and negative, masculine, feminine, I mentioned about the connotations of these words. That's why Kabbalah uses them as severity and mercy. So if you want to think as the positive energy as mercy and negative energy as severity, that can also help you understand a bit more when something has proactive or reactive qualities and a positive or a negative seed. So just like a little note for you to have in mind. This is where the adversary will push you to blame others instead of taking accountability for your own causes. Instead of thinking, oh, this thing that might be happening to this person now, instead of that person being like, it's because I did this shitty thing 2 years ago and it popped up now, how do I make it better? That person, because if they're allowing themselves to be dragged and led by the adversary, they start pointing fingers, they're not learning their own lesson. So, to be able to access these clairvoyant powers, these powers of seeing into the future, of cleaning the window and allowing light to come in, we must start by taking full responsibility for the things we've caused. If currently there is something in your life you want to change, the first step is accepting that a seed was probably planted by you, leading you to be in this situation. You should embrace responsibility because it allows you to plant seeds with higher conscious in your life. You're consciously creating causes and you're seeing the effects of those causes, even if they're not here yet. So what differentiates a positive seed from a negative seed? A seed of mercy versus a seed of severity? It's completely our behavior. Our reactive behavior plant negative seeds, while our proactive behavior plant positive seeds. The only way to create good effects for us in the future is by changing our selfish behavior in the present moment. Knowing what is in the future for us is a great motivation to act proactively now. Every proactive seed we plant now is a great investment for us in the future. And that's what Kabbalists call illuminated investing. So, in my exercise, in my example I created for myself, was getting the things written down in my third list and seeing them as an opportunity. I have an opportunity for having a greater purpose. So the seed I am consciously planting through my proactive behavior is incorporating into my work valuable insights that come from other people, not just me. What might be the future effects of this? Basically, allowing my work to connect organically in a deeper way with the people that support me, the people who like what I do. It's going to just connect organically because it included their perspective too. It's a home for their thoughts and it's a home for their feelings too. I also have an opportunity to give my creative tribe, the people I create with, the people who are around me, the best I can offer, you know? How do I do this? How do I consciously plant this seed? It's by being generous with my time, with my energy, and with my attention when I'm around someone I value and is sharing their creativity. If someone is I have this poem. I don't know what to think about it. Let's sit down, let's read it, let's read your poem, you know? It's like, that is the moment where I can actually give something valuable that is not material wealth, you know? Good energy, attention, time to share with someone who's wanting to share with me something they've created. That is a seed of mercy. That's a proactive seed, you know? And the future effects of this will be connecting and fortifying a strong network of creative souls and knowing my place in the tribe, you know? Like, I don't have to be going around the world being like, I know more than why do people like me. I know what I can offer to them. I can offer my generosity with my time, with my attention, with my sharing what I think, you know, like sharing myself with them. That's what I can offer to the tribe. That's what I can offer the people around me. And that helps me have a sense of what my place is and what my purpose is. And that is just going to foster connection and fortify a strong network. So it's worthy. It's a merciful seed. It's a positive seed to plant. So the meaning of the fifth day is clairvoyance, uncovering, tapping into this power, the power to be able to see the connection between cause and effect, to see the bigger picture. So if you reflect on this day and you actually tap into the sacred knowledge behind this line, you're uncovering clairvoyance. We're getting close to the end. Day 6. Yasid ge lamach ne sohei chuchatecha. This is a hard line. But what does this mean? The Kabbalists believe that the universe we inhabit exists for more than 15 billion years. But human consciousness only exists for around 6,000 years. In Genesis, the 6th day of creation and the 7th day symbolize the 7th millennia that humanity will exist on this earth. It's believed that for the first 6 millennia, those first 6 are meant to be a complete human transformation to get to this 7th millennium of global peace and immortality of the soul. What will make this 7th millennium so prosperous in humanity? To really understand what is the thing that will make this 7th millennium be the greatest of all, is that humanity will achieve critical mass or mass intellect. Everyone in humanity will have critical thinking. Everyone will be connected to their intellect. This represents individual and collective illumination. Humans will no longer depend on external systems for them to exist, you know. You will not need government, schools, companies, all of these things we rely on to exist. The only thing humans will need to exist is their own connection with the Ein Sof, the unknowable, the absolute, the all. That's the only thing each human, individually and collective, will need. As a generation, it's our responsibility to write the final chapter before the 7th millennium, because we are not there yet, but we're here to help the 7th millennium come. This 6th line encourages to teach what we know, not by preaching, do this, do that, do this, do that, but by being, embodying, and becoming a living example of the following teaching. You need to actually become this. Remember, there is two ways of defeating the adversary, the killer, the ego, and transforming ourselves into our highest potential. And remember, the third great force in this universe, free will. The choice is always ours. You can choose to defeat the ego in one of these two ways. The choice is going to be yours. By following a spiritual path that leads to personal transformation or suffering, the choice is yours. Not that you came here to suffer, but if you come here and you decide to be completely ignorant of the path and of the tree of life and what your soul needs to learn, and you completely ignore that while you're here, you're going to suffer a lot until you get to a point where that suffering makes you wake up. I've been there already, and I'm not the only one. So that's why I've decided to actually find the spiritual path and to go through this personal transformation, because I don't want to suffer anymore. I don't want to be that. I don't want suffering to be the reason why I do things and why I learn things. So, in this day, the exercise I came up with was like writing down what is the way I can embody this better opportunity I have every day with my actions and through a very practical way. So I have an opportunity to, in this life, have better romantic relationships. What would be my embodiment of that? Understanding that our relationships with others are a reflection of our relationships with ourselves. By respecting my own path, my own orbit, and my own self, I'm able to open up my life and to make room for supporting partners, but respecting myself all the way through. Once I've mastered respecting myself, I can open room for others to support me and for me to support others. But that respect, original base of respect, has to be with the relationship with me and me. I have another opportunity in this life to have a greater purpose. So my way of embodying this greater purpose is in my daily fight for freedom and independence, because I'm constantly fighting for freedom and independence in my life. If in this fight I include the freedom and independence of others too, then this fire quality that I have is not just destruction, it actually becomes light. And that's how I master my fire. That's how I get the best aspect of this element, which is light, and that's how I make it a daily purpose, to separate the destruction from the light while honoring this fire quality I have. And another opportunity I have is developing better judgment. How do I embody this better judgment? By allowing my personal values to evolve and strengthen through finding balance between my perspective and the opposite, contrary one. That's how I develop better judgment. I know my values, I know the things that I stand for. I will let them guide me always, especially when I'm listening to the opposite point of view. But for me to have better judgment, it will always be important to listen to that opposite point of view. So that's why this 6th day, the meaning behind this line is spreading spirituality through the world, enlightening others, particularly through the Kabbalah. Like, the meaning of this day is sharing whatever you've learned. You don't have to go and become a Kabbalist, and because this tradition has nothing to do with hierarchies and structures, but whatever you've taken from this knowledge, you have to share it. Like, that's what this life is going to mean for the ones to come in the 7th millennium, that people now shared the things they knew. That's why we got to the intellect of the masses and allowing everybody to have critical thinking, because we started by planting those seeds now by sharing the things we know. So we've gotten to the final line and the final reflection and the final day of this prayer. And the line says as following: Shabbatenu kabel ushma sakatenu yodecha talumot. So, what does this mean? The 7th line focuses on manifesting the 7th millennium in your life here and now. Not waiting for the actual 7th millennium to come, but every day stepping into that 7th millennium in your own life. To enter this perfectly peaceful state, you must be always willing to defeat the adversary, the killer, the ego. How do you do this? Well, you now have all of these tools and all of these reflections and exercises, but the ultimate way of doing it, once again, through unconditional love, through accepting yourself, friends, enemies, everyone, through unconditional love. This will give you full control over how your life manifests while you inhabit this reality. How an example of this, like, even if it's still a bit abstract, that's why I created these exercises for me to be able to practice this every day. Once again, I have this opportunity of having a greater purpose in this life. How do I inhabit and how do I step into the 7th millennium now? I do this, I live the 7th millennium now because I gave creativity an honored and divine sacred place in my life, using my projects as a way to inspire others to be more creative and to also be guided by their souls. That's how I have a greater purpose in this life. That's how I live the 7th millennium now, even if we're not logically there yet. I have this other opportunity of mastering my fire. How do I live my 7th millennium now with my fire completely mastered? I live it now because I understood the responsibility that comes with my power, and now I use my fire as a source of light and not destruction. I now choose wisely the source of combustion I put my light to serve the greater good. So, fire is always going to have something burning and combusting. I now consciously choose the thing that is going to be burned for light to be seen. It's not going to be choosing and destroying things that will make me and others suffer, but I need to consciously know that if I'm going to shine this light and for this combustion to happen, I need to choose wisely what the source of this combustion will be. So that's the way, those are two examples and two ways that I live the 7th millennium now. These are extra texts you can scan that, according to the Kabbalah, each day is connected to an angel, and an angel will help you each day if you scan this text. I wanted to share it just in case anybody wants to scan the text just with their eyes from right to left, but free will, the choice is yours. So, it's been a long video. Thank you for anyone who has sat down and watched it. I actually feel much better that I've shared and I'm not keeping this just to myself, and I defeated because it was part of my ego showing this thing of like, I don't want to do it, I don't want to record the video, social media sucks, techno-feudalism, I don't want to contribute to it, all of these things. Yes, if you've read my book Restless, which is part guide and part personal reflections about creativity, you'll know that I tend to be very critical about that. But at the same time, as I mentioned at the beginning, just sitting here recording this, saying all of these things, sharing all of this knowledge, I have an opportunity that my ancestors didn't have, and that a lot of them saw grave consequences for even trying to show it and to share it, and that's not the case now. So it's something to be grateful for. So yeah, thank you. And remember that with creativity, keep it flowing, keep it restless, because the universe is in constant creation, according to the Kabbalah. I will shut up now. Okay, if you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, you know the thing. But yeah, bye bye.